Super weird. All right, let's talk about the gaming industry in Europe. We've talked about sales in Japan. We've talked about the MPD results in the US. Let's take a look at some of Europe, which I mean, let's look specifically Germany and I think how Xbox is doing as well in here. So we'll go over here. So it's an article from GameIndustry.biz. Elden Ring, Pokemon Legends Arceus drove European sales during the first half of 2022. So 76.1 million games were sold across Europe during the first 6 months of the year, a rise of 13.5% over the same period in 2021, which I mean would make sense. More consoles, more install bases, more people are going to be buying games. We've seen with the MPD results that it's actually the industry has dropped, and a lot of that has to do with just, I think, things opening back up and not people being forced to stay inside and play video games. So less money is going to be being spent. But in terms of games, I mean, if you went out, there's tons of consoles being sold. You're going to want to spend money on content for that device, for that ecosystem that you're on. 32 million of these games were physical titles, while 44 million were sold via digital stores. Oh, that's actually not 32 million physical, 44 million digital in Europe, which to me is like, I would have expected there be a much bigger disparity in terms of digital to physical, but 12 million? I don't know. It doesn't seem like that huge, especially with where we are going and how these ecosystems work, where you're incentivized to stay all digital. Just with the subscription, with discounts, like the big sales, like you have the Xbox Ultimate sale that's going on, all of that type of stuff, all the time, just being thrown into your face when you log on. So I'm surprised it's to me, it doesn't sound like that big of a gap. The physical data covers all sold in a box, while the digital data covers from mainly AAA game developers. Okay, so then it's not including with digital like indies and stuff like that, I guess. And that's with Nintendo being a notable absentee. The biggest European market for game sales was Germany, with nearly 15.4 million games sold over the first 6 months of the year. Sales up 13.6% compared with the same period in 2021, followed by the UK with 14.3 million. So I would have thought UK would have been number one, but they're number two in the European market for games and sales. The UK market is up 2%, and then France with 10.2 million. At 12.1. So Germany, UK, and France are the top three countries in Europe, in the European market, in terms of game sales. The market growth across Europe is driven by some major new game releases. Elden Ring was comfortably the best-selling title of the first 6 months of the year. And of course, I mean, I don't know how much that's even going to change over the next 6 months of the year. Although it must be noted that Pokemon Legends Arceus in third place doesn't include download sales because Nintendo doesn't share its digital numbers. Yeah, because Nintendo's digital infrastructure is, I mean, they have the eShop, but like, I don't know. It seems just their overall, Nintendo is always far behind when it comes to any sort of digital ecosystem and all of that. I think you still have to have a friends code on the Switch. Just crazy to me. Therefore, the Switch game may have charted higher, although it has some ground to make up to trouble Elden Ring. Nevertheless, in terms of physical sales only, Pokemon Legends was number one. Okay, I have Pokemon Legends physically. Nintendo Switch games tend to skew more towards the physical retail market compared with games sold on the PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. That makes a ton of sense. In terms of countries, things varied quite a bit. Elden Ring was number one game in the UK. Pokemon number one in Germany and France. And FIFA 22 dominated the first 6 months in Spain and Italy. Yeah, it's like FIFA's so big, such a huge title. I wonder how that's all what's gonna happen after this year's FIFA when it's not called FIFA anymore, how that affects their rights. And I think I read that it's not going to affect them that huge in terms of the amount of teams and players and licensing they get for all that. But I wonder who's going to take on that FIFA name, because they're going to definitely try to sell it to somebody. And there's eFootball, there's FIFA, which is just going to be called EA Sports Football or something after this. It'll be very interesting to see, because my entire life it's always been FIFA. So it's going to be a change as to who's going to get that license. In terms of the digital physical split, we must discount all publishers that do not share digital data. Companies like Nintendo and only include countries that share physical retail data. By doing that, we can see that over 68% of games sold during the first half of the year across Europe were downloaded. Okay, makes sense. In the UK, 76% of game sales were digital. In Germany, 67% of games were downloaded, while France, 63% of sales were downloaded. Please know that some of the games counted in the analysis will not have received a physical release. Now, here we get to the hardware. Hardware is the big thing right now, right? In terms of how Xbox and PlayStation are selling. Xbox outselling the PS5 for the beginning of 2022. And a lot of this has to do with stock shortages. A lot of this has to do with people just wanting it because of the ecosystem and just Game Pass, all that type of stuff, all of the value within the Xbox ecosystem. So across tracked European countries, it's been a tough year for console sales, with just over 2 million machines sold across European countries. This excludes major markets of the UK and Germany, and a drop of over 21% year on year, which I think. Okay, so yeah, that's taking a huge fall. 21% drop in terms of console sales. That's a big drop. Probably something they do not want to see. This is primarily due to the lack of stock availability for PS5, and PS5 sales are down nearly 44% for the first half of the year. Crazy. 44% drop year over year on PS5 sales. Stock has to do a big part of it, but that means that they are just not sending enough stock over to Europe. Sending less, I guess, compared to other places in the world. The most popular remains the Nintendo Switch, which enjoyed a sales rise of 7% over the same period. I mean, Nintendo Switch still selling so well, which is nuts. Like, it's been out since 2017. I wonder when they're going to be making an upgrade on that, if they are actually going to be making the Switch Pro, which people continuously circle around for their videos, and then it just never happens. Meanwhile, the Xbox Series S and X also enjoyed a sales improvement of 9% over the same period last year. So PS5 down 44%, Switch up 7%, Series X and Series S up 9% over the same period. So it's crazy to think. So the Series X or Xbox, when they launched this generation, they have that ecosystem, right? They have the fact that you can play anywhere. If you can't get a console because of stock shortages, to them, it's not as big as a hit as it is for the PS5. You can log on to your PC and still get into the ecosystem. You can get it on your phone too. And not only did they have that they didn't have to worry about the consoles as much, they also are somehow producing more consoles, it seems like, in terms of the fact that they're up in sales and they're selling literally everything. A lot of this probably, again, has to do with their strategy of the Series S and X having that lower end SKU where they can produce more and get more out there, which is showing to be a very, very good strategy as it continues to sell well. And even there was a week in Japan where it outsold PlayStation, and the Series S sold more than the Series X because no one could get the X, but people still wanted to get into Xbox, so they bought an Xbox Series S. So the Series S, great strategy, and I mean the ecosystem, they're profiting off that and off of just being able to produce more of these consoles and send them around the world. In terms of accessories, over 8.6 million. Okay, so those accessories, PS5, the best-selling accessory is the DualSense controller, up 53% over the same period, even though their consoles are down 44%, which is interesting. And then here are the top games. So I guess the big thing here is that 9% over the same period. The Series S and X is doing extremely well across everywhere in the world. We're seeing the sales grow in Europe, in Japan, in North America, and by the end, and this is again without a big first party release. So people always like to talk about you have to have that big first party console exclusive in order to sell your console. Obviously, that's not the case. If anything, this generation has really shown that it's the death of console exclusives. You don't need that to be successful. You really don't. You need ecosystem exclusives now to get people into your ecosystem to be within your subscription. So the locking people to a console is it's going away, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's for the better of the industry and for gamers. So all in all, in Europe, Xbox is still doing very well. Elden Ring obviously doing very, very well, And yeah, just a quick sum up of that. So we've seen over the last couple weeks, we've seen the Japanese numbers, we've seen the US numbers, and now we've seen Europe.